What difference would it make if your enemy was anointed? I'm Malcolm Cox, and thank you for joining me today for Quiet Time Coaching, episode 43. And that's our question for today. What difference might it make if you knew that your enemy was anointed? Now this morning, one Bible verse changed my quiet time, changed my prayers this morning. As I often do in the mornings, before I go out to pray, I turned to the Psalms. I'm working through the Psalms of Ascent, and I've reached Psalm 133. Wonderful Psalm, short Psalm. I'll read the whole Psalm. How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. It is like precious oil poured on the head, running down on the beard, running down on Aaron's beard, down on the collar of his robe. It is as if the dew of Hermon were falling on Mount Zion. For there the Lord bestows his blessing, even life evermore. Wonderful psalm. It's a psalm of beautiful idealism. God's people living in unity. Now, if you know the history of Israel, you'll know that there weren't exactly long extended periods when this was lived out. You'll know the same is true for denominations in Christianity today, and you'll know sadly that Christendom itself over the last 2 millennia have not demonstrated tremendous unity in this idealistic way in Psalm 133. And what do we do about that, especially in our own relationships? Because to be honest with you, I can't put my hand on my heart and say that always my relationships are ones characterized by a beautiful unity. I have my own difficulties in my relationships. What do I do about that? And I focused on verse 2 this morning. And verse 2 is the one that says it's like precious oil. And that's the key phrase here, oil, the precious oil, poured on the head, running on down the beard, Aaron's beard, down onto the collar of his robe. And I have some notes on this psalm because I studied it in some detail a while ago. And one of the notes is from the IVP Bible Background Commentary. And it says this about this particular verse. In Israelite practice, anointing was a sign of election and often closely related to endowment by the Spirit. Election and the Spirit. Another quote, from another book that I had on this verse is from a book by Eugene Peterson, his book, A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. I'll put a link to these in the show notes. And he says about this verse, when we see each other as God's anointed, our relationships are profoundly affected. Let me read that for you again. When we see each other as God's anointed, our relationships are profoundly affected. Seeing each other as God's anointed, no matter how we feel about each other, seeing each other that way. So this morning I determined I would go out and pray for people that I found difficult to love and see them as God's anointed and see what difference that might make. So I went out to the park as I usually do, and prayed as I walked through Castleberry Park here in Watford, and I picked one person and I held them in my mind and I held them in my heart. And I prayed to God and said, God, I know and believe that this person is anointed. He is one of yours, just as much as me. Help me to see him as anointed in the same way that you see him. And it was a fascinating thing, and actually an extraordinary thing that happened as I did this, that I found myself very humbled, because I realized when I see this person as God's anointed, I'm seeing him and myself on the same level ground before God. No longer am I looking down on him. No longer am I looking at him as a problem, as a difficulty, as a challenge. I'm looking upon him as someone exactly like me in the sight of God, anointed. He and I together in unity because of this anointing by God, not because of whether I find it easy or he finds it easy to get on with me, but just that we are both anointed. What a wonderful thought. And it really humbled me. And I realized after this, I began to feel differently about that person. I felt differently about myself. I felt, I can love this person. I will love this person. And I'm determining to do so to the best of my ability. So just to conclude on this, is there someone you find particularly difficult to love? A fellow believer, a brother, a sister who you love but you find difficult? Is there someone like that? Perhaps you don't pray for them very often. What if you saw them as anointed by God? Would that make a difference? Could you decide to do that in your next prayer time? Go out and pray for that person, read the psalm, meditate on verse 2, and then decide, I am going to hold that person in my heart as anointed before God. And just see what difference that makes to you and your view of that person, your view of yourself, and your view of God maybe as well. So please give that a go. Let me know what happens. Try it. And then tell me whether that was hard or difficult, whether it's really changed you or changed your behavior. Does it change you in the way you act towards that person or towards other people? I would love to know. If you could leave a comment below this recording, that would be fantastic. Leave it publicly so that we can learn from each other, because we learn best when we learn in community. Pass the link to this onto one other person or anybody you think might benefit. Hit the like button if you haven't done so. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so, so that you'll be notified of further recordings. If you'd like some coaching on spiritual disciplines, do check me out by the links on my website, or if you look online at coach.me, you'll find me there, Malcolm Cox or MCCX, and I'd be delighted to help you if I possibly can. And I hope that between now and the next time we see each other, that you have a wonderful week of fulfilling quiet times, remembering that you and every believer is anointed of God. Take care and God bless.